directly into the minutes, so you got it out of the horse's mouth. Essentially just walks through essentially what we're trying to accomplish with the secondary system and the fact that you've placed variable speed drive pumps into the canal system, and that the plan is that when that basin goes into service, all of your water will be scheduled onto into the basin and will be accumulated there. And then as those pumps pull water out of the canal, an automated gate at the equalization basin will open and release that same amount of water. And it does that every 15 minutes. It pulls all the different station, pulls them in there, totalizes the number, and releases that flow for the next 15 minutes. And then it resets and does it again, and does that every 15 minutes. Now, one of the things that we got into, and this is moving on to page 2 here, is that there's a discrepancy between the calculations that were made versus the amount of water that's allowed per share of Bear River Canal Company stock. And so with Bear River Canal Company stock, there's 1 CFS that's allotted for every 80 shares if you'd like it on a continuous basis, which is how this equalization basin is set up, which means that it will provide 5.16 gallons per minute per acre or per share, because we require 1 share per irrigated acre, right? So in this case, acres and shares are equivalent. And so, but the calculations were done on a basis of 7 gallons per minute per acre. Now, the reason that it was explained to us by the city engineer that this was done is he wanted to make sure that the basin was large enough. So if you use a figure larger than what you were expecting, obviously the basin's going to be large enough that it will always be able to hold whatever water is available under your time share. He also explained to us that some of these numbers are based on those peak day use numbers that they kind of originate from DEQ, but we're in a little bit of a gray area where it's secondary water, so it's not regulated by DEQ, but you're replacing culinary water. So that's kind of the crossover that comes in between, is what we understood. So the long of the short is that his numbers are conservative. However, what it means is that in your city, on your acre of green space, you will only be able to utilize 5.61 gallons per minute per acre, which is the same as what the farmers in the area get. So it should be sufficient flow. And he's indicated that in looking at past data from the areas that you do have available metering on already, that those numbers are in that neighborhood. So he felt like through careful management and conservation, it was a easily obtainable number to hit. Now, that being said, the canal company needed to clarify a few things. So as it notes in that third to the bottom paragraph, we don't dispute the city's understanding of their own water systems. However, we're required to treat each shareholder the same. And so we were comfortable moving forward. However, there needed to be an understanding that in the event that the basin ever goes dry, so in the event it's a very, very heavy draw on the system overnight, and the equalization basin goes to 0, the canal company will be shutting off the pumps temporarily to allow the reservoir to recover. Because if there's not any water in the reservoir to replace what's being pumped upstream, then you guys are essentially taking water out of turn. Does that make sense? And so that's why we have to treat you guys as a city the same as we would a farmer. And so we're building that into the telemetry system. So the same system that calls and tells the gate how much water to release from the pond, in the event that it can't release it from the pond because there's no water in there, it will lock out the pumps and just make it so that they won't pull water. Now, there's a brownout version of this that we plan to implement in the fact that we're not going to just hammer all the pumps off of the whole system. We'll look at what available flows coming in, and we'll start to cut them out one by one. So different systems in different areas would brown out, or maybe one zone would shut off, one service area would shut off, the rest would remain on. I mean, we have no problem with you continuing to move forward with the basins that you have sufficient flows for, but we can't ever have you draw past what you have. You can't draw your ledger into the red, if that makes sense. And so this from the assessment that your engineer has made, this is a fairly unlikely scenario, but we wanted to be clear of how the canal company would administer this situation in the event that the equalization basin doesn't have sufficient water in it. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean that the equalization basin isn't large enough. The scenario I'm talking about is that over the course of several days, you could draft a little bit more water than it was coming in the 24-hour period previous to that, and it just kind of works its way down to where it's empty. And so this is something that, if it did occur, would occur for maybe 2 or 3 days in August type of a thing. If it occurs more than that, then we have a systemic problem that the city staff and myself need to address. But we just wanted to make you aware of how we were going to administer this if there indeed was an issue. Are there any questions on that?
When we had this discussion the other day, and I thought this was kind of a good approach to, there's at some point we may not be, this may be several years down the road when maybe this is an issue, or it could be this year. But the idea was to get it into some sort of document and into the minutes that, we all discussed this and we all sort of, see what the
Well, we wanted
potential issues might be.
We wanted it on a public record so that when none of you are on the council and I'm no longer the general manager, they can look back and be like, well, what was agreed upon? And so we appreciate your willingness to hear us out.
And you do bring up the point about, we do have this peak in August, and and then it sort of tapers off, and it's really what we're talking about as a window, probably not very big, in the heat of the summer when it is quite an issue.
In a drought year, it could become more of an issue because you're letting less water out, correct?
Yeah, so in a drought year, let's say it was like 2021, where we went to 75% allocation, your inflows would be reduced to 75% of normal. So you as a community, I'm sure your public works would watch to see what happens, because we anticipate you'll use less water because you're doing it all under sprinklers and you're not irrigating as large of an area. There's several factors that go into the fact that if your citizens are being conscious about the fact that we're in a drought year and don't water like drunken sailors, you guys may not have to turn your system down. You may not have to curtail because 75% might be enough if they stay thrifty. But if it looks like the system's going to bottom out, then you would have to look at doing some curtailments of some kind, whether it's you shut off a zone, maybe you shut off one zone a night or whatever it is to keep your pond flush.
Yeah, in 2021, that was the beauty of our system, is we could shut it right off. It wasn't like we had to go shut a gate down or anything. We could shut those pumps right off. And if you remember, I know a couple of you were on those systems, and so you knew that for that 12-hour period, once or twice a week it got to the end of the irrigation season, there was just no water. There was nothing they could do about it.
I think,
Legally, they-
yeah, and I think that as we encourage people to conserve, obviously, with the water pressure, the amount of water that comes out with secondary water is not what you would get out if you were watering your lawn with a well, or if you were, heaven forbid, using culinary water. You don't need to use as much, and so as we educate our public about that, that'll make a huge amount of difference. And then encourage dryscaping. In the coming months, the city will be talking about beautification and rewarding people for having dryscape in their yard, therefore being conservative. And so I think that this can be done. We just have to continue to educate and talk and make it a good thing to have a beautiful yard without necessarily grass in it.
So if this central canal, or excuse me, this central reservoir is the one down there
Yeah, it's the
that
one
we're
they're building right
I think
now.
starting on, right?
Yeah, they're digging.
If we add another reservoir, how does that change the occasion, or does it? How does that change the equation, or does it?
The same thing will apply. The pump stations associated with that equalization basin, if there's water in the equalization basin, they can be in service. If there's not, they will be curtailed until the basin recovers.
Okay, so does this one basin cover all of the pumps we have now?
So this basin is sized for build out of everything from the Malad River to I-15.
Okay.
So we're talking probably well beyond any of us time-wise.
Right.
You know, at some point, they might have to do something. If they did, they would either expand that pond or build another one.
Okay, so the other one on the other side of the Malad is to take care of that side,
That
the
side of
side
our
of the
town
Malad
as we
River.
grow, uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you.
So certainly multi-generational, which is what we've talked about, you know, when we, you know, the city doesn't go in debt for things, but this is a multi-generational type project. And so in that case, we use grant money and such to make sure that our future is bright when it comes to water.
There's not a lot of good design standards for a system like this, and we don't have much history yet with our system. So over the next 5 years, I think we'll get a lot better idea of what the use will be and really know where we're at. But I feel like I've been pretty conservative in my design the way it is.
Yeah, we're gonna set precedents for the valley of secondary. Everybody else is gonna have to do, you know,
They'll
so,
be looking here for some of that information and that,
Right.
that kind of detail.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, sure.
just wanted to get clarification. Did I understand you right, Trevor, that Chris actually used a higher standard for the design than what the canal company uses for their shares?
So.
I know I've said that exactly right, but
If you take a share of Bear River Canal Company water, you are allotted 1 CFS for every 80 shares that you own. If you turn that into gallons per minute per share, that's where we get that 5.6 number. And so he was conservative on the side of how big the pond is, but our concern is more about the fact is if the pond were to go empty. Because you're saying our citizens are going to use 7 gallons per minute per acre.
yeah.
And that's what you did your calculations on. But because we're limited by the amount of water we can give you, you can only have 1 share per irrigated acre. When we did the build-out calculations acreage-wise, it ends up making it so that your citizens are using more water than they could own, than the city could own, because you can't put more than 1 share on 1 irrigable acre, or else we're violating the proposed determination of the City Engineer's office.
Yes.
That's why we have more shares than,
So are we
That's
in
not
a
allowed by
situation?
law. So let's say you had 150 irrigable acres in the city right now. I mean, I don't know what that number is. I'd have to go, we're working on getting the basin all set in and all that ready to go for this coming season. But let's just say it was 300 acres of irrigable green space. You can't have 330 shares assigned to that. It has to be 300,
Yes.
or else you're wasting water. It violates a principle called the duty of water.
oh,
And so,
Chris has built it to the 7, so we had plenty of capacity.
capacity, yeah.
So for a little perspective, the state standard, the Division of Drinking Water Rules for outdoor use they've kind of changed the way they're system specific now, but for years, the state standard was, for peak day was 1.87. Yeah, that's a long time been known to be too low. The canal allows 5.61 based on a share calculation. I've designed the pipes and the pumps to handle 7. And that's a peak. That's a peak day. So
So what we see is we see that.
only be one of those because that's the peak. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you
I was
finished?
just saying that
Oh.
that's the peak day. You know, that's the one time.
Yeah.
Peak, and there's usually a few, maybe a week or so where it might hover.
Usually
that
around
area,
July
but
24th is our peak day.
I don't
in there.
think we'll hit it.
So what's kind of unique here with, between the farmers and what we're doing is that we're, on demand, where the farmers have a irrigation turn that they can use their water during the week. What we're doing here is we're allowing for on-demand sort of use of the water. But what we find also is that what the canal companies and Paul and Chris have found is that we're using a lot more water in through the night, where and then during the daytime it sort of tapers off just a little bit. And is that kind of how this equalization basin is going to function, is because our high peak demand is more in the evening or in the nighttime, and then during the daytime it refills? Is that sort of the idea?
Yeah, so looking at some of the live data from previous seasons, at 2 and 3 in the afternoon, some of your pump stations are pulling no water, absolutely nothing. So right now, you're just letting water go downstream, which is really helping the downstream users. But at night, there may be an overdraft, a heavy draw occurring. So, I mean, if you look at the basins, for example, when I was looking at the numbers, at full build-out, there will be, let me pull up the exact numbers so that I'm not. So the inflow to the pond would be 10.39 CFS, but the max outflow would be 27.55. So in the middle of the night, it's going to really be rocking and rolling, releasing a lot of water, and then all the time it's just bringing in consistently that 10.39 CFS. Does that make sense? So at night, you're going to be falling, and then about 10 o'clock in the morning, it's going to start to gain, and it'll gain probably till about midnight, and then the process will start over again. And the idea is that it just makes it so that from I-15 south, the canal remains steady. It's just like you're a farmer always irrigating with that same 10.39 CFS.
Because, we encourage the water on the lower evaporation rate, which is from basically 8 in the evening till 8 or 10 in the morning, because that's the way that the state likes us to do it. The farmers, otherwise, they irrigate when they get their turn. Poor guys. Well, I think the poor ones are in the middle of the night, but we, where they're sprinkled their homes, we encourage the water on the off-peak times. So the evaporation rate, and get a better water for the time of day.
Right.
So Chris, you feel that you've designed this large enough to handle the capacity for quite a while? If we designed it to be a little bit larger, it would help you with the problem, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. If needed sometime in the future, they could enlarge it or build another one. I think by the time that happens, we'll be looking at serving areas south of the freeway and doing some other work down there too. So, like I said, in 5 years, we'll have a lot better handle on what the actual usage rate will be.
I just really think when we'll see a problem is during drought observation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when, like before, we notified our customers and they understood. It went off, because we're not the only one being reduced. It's everybody, even those that make a living off the canal growing crops. And hopefully they understand that a lot of times our lawns are less important as crop,
Yeah,
or as important. But
that's for sure.
And then to just comment on the second part of the document, so the gate that's being installed won't release all the water that's required for build out. It's not large enough. However, the smaller gate allows for more accurate measurement. The other thing is it's going to be 10 to 15 years at the earliest before you're going to need to utilize the entire basin. And where we also don't necessarily understand the magnitude all that well until we get 5 or 6 years of data under our belt, the city engineer put in that we'd just put this one gate in for now, and then as the need arose, we'd add the second one in. Because if it is 15 years, that's half the life expectancy of one of these gates. So it'd be stupid to install 2 automated gates to have one sit there for 15 years and do nothing. So the last page there just walks through the 2 thresholds. Once one of these is met, that'll be the year that the city will then have to dig a hole in the side of the pond and the equalization basin and install an identical second gate to allow it to release the needed flows, if that makes sense.
Okay, you have anything else for us, Trevor?
Appreciate you guys, and thank you for letting us come. The board just, in their approval, just wanted me to come and explain these things to you guys so that you heard it from the horse's mouth. And like we said, we don't anticipate any problems. We just wanted to explain how it'd be administered if there were issues. So thank
Okay.
you for your time. I appreciate what you do.
Well, we thank you. Thank you very much.
That's a good question.
Sure, absolutely.
Aside from this is just out of my own curiosity on processes. Now your canals are still running. Is that because we have a lot of, you're trying to drain down the reservoirs a little bit to fill up? I mean, why,
Why are we running right now?
yeah.
So we have so there's many types of water rights, but we own two main ones. The first is the irrigation right, which goes from April 1 to October 31. And then we have a stock watering right that goes from November 1 to 31 of March. And so we obviously don't run it through the whole winter because it freezes here
Correct.
in Box Elder County. But this water is to water cattle and sheep and horses and things like that until we have a hard freeze, and then we'll shut down. But it's very low consumption. So a lot of this water is soaking into the aquifer. There isn't very much transpiration or evaporation right now. And then quite a bit of it is running back into the rivers and the wetlands. So you'll see that. It just happens to be one of the water rights the canal company owns, so.
Thanks. I just wondered about that.
You said November 1st to what?
To the 31st of March.
Okay.
But in practice, we don't usually run past Thanksgiving because we have a hard freeze and we start dealing with ice dams forming in the canal, so.
Chris or Paul, do you have anything for us? Anything to add to that?
All covered, yeah.
Thanks, Treasurer.
Explained very
Trevor,
well.
We really appreciate you coming in and sharing that with us, and this is good information, and we'll make sure we do our part.
What's your
Thank you, guys.
anticipation on completing the canal or the reservoir?
That, and it has to be completely dug and put in place by April 1st. And then that gives us time to set the gate, because the company we bought the gate from, Dottomate, they come out and set it and calibrate it. And so it'll be operational
next
by
year?
May 1st.
Okay, so we'll be using it next water.
Oh,
season.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So,
It's the exact same company we use. And
Yeah,
so they'll
it's
be
called
installing
Rubicon.
26 other gates in our system at the same time, so we'll,
You putting in 26 gates this year?
$1 million, well, actually,
Gates aren't cheap either.
it'll be, well, we had $1 million last year of automation we put in, well, we're supposed to put in.
they couldn't get it in.
And then we had another $500,000 this year, and it ended up being the other way around. About $500,000 of it sat in the yard this last season because we just couldn't get it in to start up. So, and then about another $2.5 million worth of pipelines are going into. So it's a busy off season for us.
Good, give you something to do, right?
Yeah.
Not that I didn't already have enough. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Okay, let's see here. We got, next we're, Chief, you got a report for us that you're going to share on the police department and update there?
Are they?
I think so.
No, okay.
You know me too well, man. I don't know if you're gonna sit or stand. I'll stand.
All right. Yeah,
You been here a year already?
it's been a year. Wow. Yep. Time flies, huh? So I wanted to take the time to present all the accomplishments we had. I kind of want to start with the preface that none of this would be possible without your support, so I greatly appreciate you. I think of the analogy of someone steering a ship, right? I'm like your captain, and I can steer in a certain direction, but without your support in the form of fuel and manpower and all those things that it takes to get things moving, we wouldn't have made it anywhere. So I do appreciate all your help. This is our motto we're kind of adopting, standing together for a safer tomorrow. It's not just about our department, it's about the fire department. It's also about our relationships with both Logan, Cache, as well as Box Elder County Sheriff. We'll talk briefly about that as well. So this is where we started. It's important to understand context, right? Where we started, where we are now. We were in crisis. That's just the reality. And I'll show you what I mean by that as we go through this. In the background, that's just a photo of some of the garbage we've removed from the police department. Wes stopped by a couple times during that project, as well as the mayor. We're talking 10, 20, maybe even 30 years of just equipment, trash, things that we didn't need that was totally bogging us down. And it's kind of philosophical to the state, how we were mentally as well when we started, because we were also bogged down. There was a lot of internal issues. We fixed that. It took some time, but we worked through it. We got organized, and we're right on track with that. Other things, we had outdated policy, training, things that put us in a state of liability for not just our department, but the city. And we've managed to fix most of those issues, not all of them, but we fixed the highest risk ones. Poor training. At the time I came on, most of our training was via computer online. It's called a DTB, which is a daily training bulletin. We've shifted to more hands-on and realistic training. Wes has seen some of that training. It's really important for police officers. We can't do our job if we're not training how we play in the field. Illegal practices, that we won't get into that, but there was a lot of liability that wasn't needed, and we went and we fixed all those issues. Sean was really helpful with that too. It was an evidence problem, and now we're right on track. We had very low morale. This was scary. When I first started, I kind of wanted to see where we're at. We did a survey. 100% of our employees had said they were considering leaving within that last year. That is what I mean by crisis. 60% had active applications, and keep in mind we're a smaller department at that time. If we would have lost 60% of our employees, we would have failed as a police department. We wouldn't be able to provide the services 24/7 like we do now. And there was really no chain of command, no officer care as far as officer appreciation or wellness programs. This is that survey from last year. I enjoy working for Tremont Garland Police Department. Only 42% said yes. I feel respected at work. 50% said yes. I feel my management cares. 50%. I've actively considered leaving. Once again, that's 100%. My opinion matters. 15%. I mean, this is just a failure as a department overall. I feel recognized for my work. 0% said they felt recognized at the time. And as far as pay and benefits, only 10% felt it was fair with the market. I feel my city cares about me, 50%. It's important to be mindful that we have some Garland employees as well. It's not just Tremont, and there were some major issues with that. So now that we know where we started, let's focus on where we went. The first thing we've really focused on as a department is community-oriented policing, COP. This is an example of that. So the guys proactively went to one of the bars just to do a bar check. It's common in larger agencies. They made a point to do it. We weren't called here. They just went to interact with the public and check in. They decided to sing karaoke. I muted it because that's cruel and unusual to you. But I'm pretty sure they're all tone deaf because it was brutal. But the people loved it, and you could just see the smile on their face, and it is loud. I mean, everybody was super excited. They're singing Bad Boys. That is the kind of thing that creates a lasting positive impact in our community. Just those little interactions that people will remember a long time. Other areas we focus, kind of our motto with COP is selfless service. We're really focusing on media relations, keeping positive media relations. That helps us twofold. One, it gets all the positive things we're doing out to our public, but it also helps us by having those relationships so we can represent the facts and not have facts misrepresented, which is common in media nowadays. Public relations, again, just making it an effort. We'll go over some of the things we've done with the public, as well as business relations. I've had the opportunity to meet with our business leaders around the community and kind of get their perspective and see how we can help them. I hope to do more of that in the coming year. So this is some of the things we've done as a department. Schools, we've been highly interactive with our schools, as Connie knows. We're going into these schools and we are training the staff on active shooter situations. Our officers are constantly checking in with them. Just a really great relationship overall. There's been a lot of programs, and I'd love to take credit, but it's 100% on my guys and my staff where they've stepped in and they've looked for ways they can serve. This was from last year where they donated sick time to buy Christmas for families in need, and that's just above and beyond. I mean, I was super impressed with them, and they amaze me every day. And volunteering, any opportunity. I mean, we had Pete, who just stepped in. I won't put him on the spot, but he and Ted, one of our other part-time guys, put on a Santa suit, went around, delivered presents to the kids. It was really awesome. This is a quote. It's kind of got some history behind it, Sir Robert Peel, but the police are the public and the public are the police. We're trying to embrace the ideas that we are the same as our public. We're not better than them, and we're here to serve them. So here's some other examples. We, as you know, won that lemonade contest. It's super cool. I mean, we got to interact with the public a lot, but what's most impressive to me is that we had a higher call volume with less cops, and we still managed to make the interactions we needed within our community. Officers were working with only one person on, and they were making a point to hit all these lemonade stands between calls, whereas Brigham would average like 3 people on at any given time, and we just blew them out of the water. So really impressive. Just the only reason we did that is because the officers really care. They were willing to bleed for the cause. Some of you may have seen this video. This is Sergeant Gailey. He actually volunteered he kind of submitted a challenge in one of the schools, and if they raised a certain amount of money for a kid in need, he was willing to get tased from the school. Well, he lost the bet. Here's the video. And there is sound if you want to hear him screaming, but it's terrible. I wouldn't recommend it. Very, very painful to be tased. And I would never volunteer for that, but he did, so.
How much would it take, Chief?
A lot. It's the worst thing it's very painful. I can't emphasize that enough. Our policing strategy, so I've kind of came up with a 3-pronged design. What you're going to see is not conventional with other departments, including larger departments. I come from Unified Police. They were strictly respond. There was not a plan, and I was never a fan of that. So we actually start by trying to reduce our crime, and that means identifying issues we have, preventing crime before it happens, as well as respond to crime. That's always going to be an element, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is what that looks like. We had a 300% increase in search warrants. Basically, if a home is a business, a narcotic business, it's going to attract crime to it by the nature of the business. We've tried to seek out and close down those businesses to get the crime out of our neighborhoods. We focused on high crime areas based on our statistics and the number of responses there. We've been targeting fugitives, the worst criminals that are attracting other criminals to our community. A good landlord program. Matheson is probably our biggest call load right now. We're constantly out there. We're working with the management to work together, try to get the problem children evicted, and that way we can get good people in there. And the idea behind that is to reduce our crime. And crime reduction strategies, we have a program that's preventative with sex crime issues with young adults. We're going to start rolling that out in the school. I met with the superintendent. He's very helpful, great guy. And targeted enforcement, just focusing on our problem areas and weeding out the issues that have already existed in our community. A few noteworthy cases. Last year we got 3 sexual predators arrested. It's important to understand these individuals have been in our community for 10 plus years. It's always been a problem, we just weren't aware of it. We've got other relationships and resources such as ICAC, and with their help we're able to identify these people and kind of weed them out. Search warrants, like I said, we did a total of 5 last year, assuming we're going to do about the same the next year. But by closing those homes, we're deterring crime. The Garland teacher incident, I don't know how long that was going on, but we got them out of our schools, and that went up to the county. Double shooting, we prosecuted on that and full convictions, and I believe that individual has been sent to prison since. And of course, most recently, we had that Box Elder most wanted arrest. This is what I talk as far as positive media relations. We've done some press conferences, keeping our community informed, letting them know we're taking action on these problems, as well as identifying them. This is the one on the most wanted suspect. This is a video. I believe there is a swear word, so I'm glad it's muted. But what you're going to see here is the foot pursuit. This was sent in by a civilian following that chase. In the background, what you would hear is a whole bunch of lights and sirens, and that's Detective Jorgensen and me chasing him. We, shortly after, as soon as we circle that, we end up getting him in custody and clearing the house. It was good, nobody was hurt, but that was pretty scary. Emergency response, we've now created that plan. This was an issue during our double shooting. We really didn't have the resources we needed, so we've created a SWAT team with Box Elder County. That's been a lot of work, but it's been worth it. This is our team, just doing some firearms training. We also have formed a relationship with Logan and Cash in case it goes bigger than we're prepared to, and they're willing to respond free of cost for us, and as well as train with us, which is awesome. It's really good for our community. This is an incident. It was during one of the SWAT ops. We actually had probably 10 SWAT operators in the basement. As this domestic took off, it got pretty violent, but we were able to send all those resources over there. What you're going to see is a suspect. He starts out compliant, and then he starts to pull away, and he's going to, what they believe he's going for a weapon. So we'll just let this play. So they're trying to take control. There's a lot of screaming in this as well. The big thing with police is we want to control the hands because that's what kills us. He's diving in the other room. I want to say there was a knife or something. That was the kitchen. Yeah, the kitchen. He was going for the kitchen. They secure him. He continues to fight. And you were there, Pete, right? And they're able to get him into cuffs. And I don't believe we tased him.
I tased him 3 times.
Okay, there you go. And this was just on any other day. I mean, this kind of stuff happens all the time. I just play that to give you an understanding of what our officers are going into on a daily basis. This is kind of the analogy I think of when I think of crime. It's kind of like a cancer, and this isn't new to me. This was Bill Bratton. He was the NYPD commissioner for multiple years, really good police officer, a cop's cop. But he said, think of crime as a cancer. We've always had it out here, and now we're just starting to seek it out and try to remove it so we can be healthy as a community. Morale, some things we've rolled out for morale, officer appreciation program. We have wellness programs, peer support, fitness, things of that nature. We're going to be rolling out a mentorship program this year, which I'm really excited about to give people kind of a direction with their career. We created more opportunity by adding positions and being a part of these task force. And we've increased our officer safety with your help with our staffing and things of that. And overall, we've just improved safety with our training and stuff. This is an example of real-life training, what it should look like. So we did a bunch of building clearing, responding to incidents. When we started, it was pretty rough, but this is kind of where we ended. You'll see a really good room entry here with our patrol. And those are simunition guns, so you can actually act with those and get positive feedback if things happen. Great learning tool. So we talked about the before. This is kind of what our turnover rate was. Some people retired, some people left. Our average was about 3 people per year, which is kind of a lot for a small department. This is where we were at up until very recently. As you can see, it's a bigger department now, and we've only lost 1 officer, which is an increase in retention by 66% over the last year. We do have some challenges with that, and I'll talk more about that later on when I do my department head report. As far as funding goes, we've had a huge increase. I'm not exactly sure how much money we were bringing in before. Over the last year, we're close to $160,000 between our grants, our donations, and we have both federal grants and state grants for officer wellness. It's been really good. It's important to understand grants are really difficult. They're very challenging, and you have to manage the money you have. Otherwise, you risk giving that back. We're right on track with our school program, which is going to be great. We don't really have the resources to go for more grants, I'd say, this year without risking losing the ones we have just because we're running out of people to manage those grants. But it's been very productive. One thing, and the biggest reason I want to have this meeting and present to you is you guys took a chance with me, and I really appreciate that. And I want you to look at that as an investment, right? An investment in the community and in me. And I'm not sitting idly by things I've done to improve myself, both on duty and off duty. And some of this I paid for myself just so I can continue to grow for my community as well as my department. Recently completed the FBI Executive Command College. That was really great. The biggest benefit of that is as a community now we have resources I can access. I can make a phone call and we could get 10 forensic specialists here from the FBI within 2 days. And that's one of the benefits, a ton of resources that we can reach out and bring to our community if something horrible happened. Finished FBI LEDA trilogy. I'm on the last section of that. That's close to a 100-hour course on leadership specific to law enforcement and overcoming the issues we're facing. I've done multiple leadership courses through the Harvard Business Certification Program. Pretty close to finishing that. It's getting towards the end, but it's been good. And I'm scheduled to attend a PIO training. I'm trying to get that funded through another resource, but that will be through FEMA, and I think that will benefit our community as well. This is probably the most impressive thing I would say as far as like the ability to bring resources into our community if something horrible happened. We've created really good relationships. Box Elder County, as you guys have probably heard me talk multiple times, they're fantastic. Their sheriff's fantastic. They help us on a lot of calls, and we're really grateful to have that relationship. The sheriff's wonderful. Very close-knit. We talked about FBI. Recently, I've had the opportunity to sit down with both the Logan chief as well as Cache County's sheriff. Really great guys. They offer a ton of help, and in exchange, we'll help them if they have a case that requires us. Good resources, big departments, lots to offer. North Ogden created that relationship through the Command College. UHP, they've always worked pretty well with us, and Garland, we've actually repaired a lot of relationship problems on the police side with them, so that's been good as well. Brigham, we're working on Brigham. It's a work in progress. We've had some issues. I believe me, the mayor, and Sean will be sitting down with them in the near future. I think it's tomorrow, actually, to try to square some things away, but we're working on it. Survey now, this is important. Let's go through the most recent survey. We had way more people complete the survey, so that's something to take into account. I feel the department has improved in the last year. 100% say yes. I enjoy working for the department. 98% say yes. That's a 48% improvement. I feel respected at work. 86% do now. 36% improvement. I feel my management cares. 98%. Now, there's always the one guy that's disgruntled, and we're working on him, but 98 is pretty good. That's 36% improvement. I've actively considered leaving the last year. This I'm still concerned about, and like I said, we'll talk about it more later. It's 33%, but that is a 67% improvement. I feel my opinion matters. 85% feel like it does now, which is a 65% improvement. I feel recognized, 100% improvement. And I feel our police department has fair pay and benefits in today's market. A little concerned here, like I said, we'll talk about that, but it's a 46%, which is a 36% improvement. And I feel my city cares about me. 84% is the current number, which is a 34% improvement. So big things. We've pretty much improved in all those areas. Is there any questions about any of this stuff?
I do.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned you have this wonderful professional network that you're working with, right? And we had discussion about that.
Yeah.
But we can't rely on those people every single moment to be here. There was an individual in our town that told me, we don't need additional police officers in Tremont because we can just rely on, the sheriff's department or something. But when I talked to the past police chief, he told me, you can't rely on them because they might be busy doing something else. And they would love to come and help, right? But you have to have a department that's healthy and whole and ready to respond. And then, of course, we know from just the last few months that people do come and help us. And that's great, but we have to be whole ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a misunderstanding. And honestly, I was ignorant to that fact myself until we had that shooting. And the reality is they can tell us no, and they do sometimes. So we have good neighbors, and they will help us out, and we will help them out. But like you said, if they're on a domestic violence call and the county's also short-staffed, they may be tied up and may be unable to respond, and so we're left on our own. And the other agencies, while it's fantastic, we can get Cash out here and we can get Logan out here, that is a long time. And in the police world, an hour is a lifetime. And sometimes 10 minutes can be a lifetime, especially if you're fighting for your life. So I totally agree. It's absolutely imperative we're staffed correctly.
So we're talking about, obviously, our city is very supportive of our police department. They're very supportive of what we've done as a city. But tell me where we're at as far as hiring. I know last time we talked, there were some individuals that were coming to our department that we considered to be highly valuable, that we wanted to have on our police force. But where are these people, and where are we in the respect of actually getting them working with us?
Yeah, so whenever we hire a new police officer, we're looking at a year if we sponsor them through the academy before they're out on their own as an asset. There's a lot of training involved. You can't just go down the street and hire anybody. It's a very long process to get through the background checks, get through the police academy, and frankly, we lose people all along the way in that process. So if they do make it through the training, the background check, and the field training portion, we're about a year out, and then they can start working in our community. The fear is that as we go forward, we may start to lose people based on some economic challenges with other departments, and that's kind of what we're going to try to work on from our side. But we're pretty healthy. We actually have, I want to say full staffing, I don't want to jinx it, but we are keeping one position open, and I'll talk more about why when I sum up this thing as my department head section. But yeah, we can get people here, but the people we're getting, it's difficult. Like, it's a police market out there. So as someone comes out of the academy and they're highly marketable and they're sought after and they're actively recruited by multiple agencies because they're the asset right now. And it's based on the principle of supply and demand. They're in low supply, very high demand. Pretty much every police department in Utah is not fully staffed right now, and if they are, it's give it a month, they're going to be short-staffed again. And that's because they're constantly moving around, officers are, to seek the best pay, benefits, and community to work for, and that's a challenge we have to contend with. So to answer your question, we had 18 applicants recently, which is fantastic, and I credit that to my guys and the culture we've created as a department. Out of those 18, maybe 2 were certified, and maybe 5 were people that we believe could go to the next phase, or we might invest in getting through the academy. Will they make it through? I don't know. And that's the hardest part about this job is, as cool as it is to get applicants and put people through the academy and start their career, it's way more fiscally responsible to retain what you have because it's a huge investment. And after about 2 years, they can easily leave at the end of that contract period. I want to say it's 2 years.
Died on me. Any other questions? Go ahead, Brett.
I come from a background of quality assurance and matrices and all that, and you've been in here a year, and you've done, I feel like you've done some great things. Okay? What I'd like to see maybe in the future is a little bit more of some matrices from here's where we are when we started, here's where our crime rate's gone, here's where all these different, and you could identify what that matrix may be, but it'd be kind of fun to go back and see our progress, not by how great the employees feel, but more how are we doing as a police department in providing a safe community for our
Yeah, absolutely. What you're talking about is called ComStat, and basically it's a statistical way of analyzing a community and seeing what the progress is in a given area. Two issues with that. One, with crime, once you introduce a new element, you take a different strategy. It takes a little bit of time for the statistics to catch up. So that's the data problem. The other issue is I would love nothing more than to buy that software so we could track our crimes, and I've been asking for it since I came here. It's pretty expensive, and a lot of big departments have it, not a lot of small departments have it. So that's my challenge. I would love to give you that, though, and I'm confident in the results. We just don't have those resources, but if you guys want to buy it, I'm happy to present that.
There you go.
We do appreciate the updates, the weekly updates that you guys send out. And, as I'm thinking about what Brett said there, you can, there's some historical sort of stuff that you can start accumulating and putting together. And after a while, there's some, you start seeing some trends and maybe start seeing some things that are taking place that might be very beneficial. But, impact is kind of, in my mind, I don't know if that's what you're thinking, but in my mind, that's what we're looking for is sort of the impact of, the impact, the benefit, what we're getting out of the investment. That's a harsh way to say it, I guess, but that's kind of what I think we're sort of wondering, asking for, and just, and you've done a good job showing a lot of the impact and everything here. I'm not, but you get my idea?
Yeah, and I mean, we've tracked some statistics. I'll be honest, it's very time laborsome because we don't have that software. But that's how we actually got the federal grant, is by showing a crime trend in our community that has grown over the last 10 years. The way we analyze that data is we pulled every case for the last 10 years, and just to keep the data manageable for one person to analyze, we focus strictly on sexual violence. And I can tell you with that, it's been on a steady rise with the population for the last 10 years, with no shown signs of slowing down. The federal government was nice enough to give us money to try to deter that and bring that down. And we'll be able to analyze that data as we start to implement that program to see if it has an impact. But it's probably going to be a little while before we see that correlation. In fact, it's a couple years, because we're training children, essentially high school kids, how to avoid being victims, and then for them to apply that as they get into the age of the target range. But it's based on evidence-based practices, so I think we will see a drop, but that's probably like 3, 4, 5 years out before we have the data to show that decline, if there is one. So, good.
And I may feel a little bit different than the mayor. I don't judge you're doing a great job. And
I appreciate that.
We've invested in you and we trust you, right? And I'm sure that's what the mayor was saying there. However, the matrix, what that will do is help you to identify this is working, this isn't working.
Sure.
And so, if you're using a crime rate and you're trying a new program and you're assessing that crime rate and you're saying, oh, we're failing here, we got to change our approach. And so it's more from that approach to just keep yourself always improving versus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And the programs I'm implementing aren't, stuff I came up with. It's been evidence-based in other communities, and there's very few that have a lot of research behind them to show a marked improvement on crime. The ones that do and the research supports are the ones we've rolled out. Similar to, I've had the experience implementing those in Kearns when I was the investigative sergeant, and we saw a marked improvement over time. However, they had the luxury of having that software to analyze all the data that is law enforcement. So, I'll think on that. I think that there's a creative, cheaper way to do that, but we may have to buy software because I'd love to give you the numbers, and I would love to see them as well. I'm very data-driven, but, everything's expensive nowadays.
Well, it may be a fun thing to do. I loved your officer survey.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a citizen survey.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
and then that'd be fun. And then in a year or so from now, do another one of the same and see what kind of results you got. And it would have been fun to have a citizen survey before you started.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Where they fit now. But
Yeah, I'm all about feedback, so if you guys have ideas you'd like to see, let me know, and we can figure out a way together. So, that's all I got. Appreciate you guys.
Perfect.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a few minutes here. Let's go down through the agenda a little bit. Let's see. Are there any, let's go through the council business. I think that'll be probably the place to start here, and then the rest of it, I think, is pretty straightforward. The public hearing, I apologize, the public hearing is for the capital facilities plan and impact fees. Sean, you've been working on this a lot, and the idea is we're going to try to bring all of that up to date. And Sean, do you want to give us a little rundown on that?
Well, Paul, too, do you want to lead off, Paul, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we do have a wastewater engineer, and it's Aqua Engineer. And so it's a specialized area of engineering. They've been with us for as long as I've been here and beyond, I'm sure.
Probably 94.
As long as I have.
Yeah, so they've done a great job for us, and every time we go through this process, we engage them to construct an impact fee facility, well, a capital facility plan and an impact fee facility plan. And really the difference is the capital facility plan looks at a longer planning window, where the impact fee facility plan is really focused on the 6 to 10 year window, which is envisioned in the state code. So they look at what kind of improvements we need within that time period. And Lindsay, if you could scroll down, I think the most telling part of the report is going to be, it's on page 14. Oh, oops, if you're there, you might have gone too far. It's the city staff report. Yeah, right there, okay, scroll up. So right there is a good table that summarizes what the improvements are envisioned through this impact fee period, and the estimated time, and the number of ERUs serving. It also looks at what's impact fee eligible. So anything that increases capacity, that creates opportunities to service new ERUs, those are equivalent residential units. So new residential units are identified in that area. And that's what we're able to build our impact fee based upon, is what are the projects, what's the capacity that those projects provide as far as servicing new development, and then dividing that those costs over the anticipated units that will be new units that will occur during that period of time. And so the impact fee, if you look, you can see the total eligible impact fee costs are that 7.6. It is the wastewater treatment plant process is a highly mechanized process. It is expensive to create. It's expensive to maintain, although impact fees, as everyone knows, do not go towards maintenance. It's just not allowed within the state code. So it's really the construction of these new facilities. So scroll down, if you would, Lindsay, to the next table. This is where it looks at impact fees. And essentially, the maximum impact fee that's allowed to be collected is $2,600, inching up to $2,700. If you scroll down a little further, you can see that the current fee is this is for single family. That's an ERU. One ERU is one single family detached it's 1,700 based upon the projects that will be undertaken and contemplated during this impact fee period. It's $2,679. The difference is an increase in $978. And you can see follow that path for multifamily, which is an increase of almost $630. So I would also just tell you that part of the state statute requires that the engineer who provides this impact fee facility plan has to certify that it meets all the state requirements as far as compliance with the law. The same is true for the impact fee analysis. The impact fee analysis is what essentially takes all the projects that the engineers identified and then does the analysis of what the fee should be based upon each individual residential unit. And they also have to sign a certification along with the preparation. And so everything's in order for you to adopt. I think it is important to adopt it. There is a 3-month waiting period. So once you adopt this ordinance, it won't become effective, and this new rate won't go into effect until 3 months. So adopting it now will allow us to implement comes, February, I think.
May I ask
Type
a
of-
question? Sure. How come multifamily is less than single family?
They use less water, essentially. They generate less wastewater. If you look at like household size, usually I think a single family is closer to 3, and a multifamily, by the census, when they do the census counts, is less than that. It's like 2, 3, I want to
Yeah,
say.
it's about
Is
two,
it per unit?
yes, and so when apartments come in, we multiply it by
That was the
3/4.
building.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah. Because they don't have the same yard, they don't have the same everything. So, understandable.
Any other questions?
So this is just for new people, this is new building, this is new people that come in, this is their way of contributing to what we already have in place.
This is paying for their impacts that are allowed by law.
Yes.
Because there are parameters which the state statute clearly defines, and that's why, I kind of emphasize that they have to sign a certification. And so essentially, this is what the state law allows us to capture or for new growth to pay for, which
I
is
like the term
included
that
there.
we use a lot called buy-in. That's our buy-in to our
Yep.
system.
Yep.
So,
I just didn't want there to be a rumor started around Tremont, and imagine that maybe, that now everyone's going to be paying this impact fee, which is not the case. This is for individuals that move into the community and want to,
and it's applied at the time of building permit.
yes,
Not subdivision construction, but building permit.
okay.
Any other questions? Wes, do you have anything on that?
No, I think mine will come up
All right.
later. I gotta find where I had it on here.
Okay. Let's, we got some good news about the service area number 4. Let's see, Paul, do you want to report on that a little bit and tell us?
It's on to award the bid, and the bids came out really well in our favor. Engineer estimate was like 1.7, and the bids are 1.35, the low bid. And so, and our 2 local contractors were really neck and neck. And I think, from what we're told, they're gonna work together on the project.
Wow.
So, but, and then a lot of times they'll say, well, why you have that one outlier that's 3 million plus? And we never really know why. We just assume they thought, if I get this project, I've made bank. And so, but you'll see, the locals are real competitive because of, I they can throw a lot of the material out of their gravel pits at the project, and their transportation costs are nothing compared to others, so. But yeah, we've done really well, and so, we'll use that extra to help with metering, purchasing the meters and stuff to go in those new connections.
So this, I know the council is aware of this, but maybe for the public to know, here several months ago, we applied for a grant through the Department of Water Resources and received this grant for $2 million. So this phase, this service area number 4 is paid for entirely through grant funding, and which is a really good thing. We won't have to go find that money from somewhere else. And so I think that's a real positive, something that I think the public should be aware of, that when this construction starts, hopefully this fall, winter, we'll know that it was all paid for. And we got a great bid, so, yeah. Okay,
That's awesome.
let's see, resolution number 23 let's see, remind me, we need to go into a closed session to discuss some issues pertaining to some individuals and hiring some people. So we're going to go into closed session. Remind me of that so we don't go past a quarter to. Let's see. Reaffirming and amending and enacting the new fees and fines schedule. Sean?
Mark's been working on that.
Mark?
Yeah. So all the fees and fines that the city charges needs to be updated, and the council needs to approve those fees and fines. So the two big ones that we've been working on since the last update, the first one is our development fees, and that's the cost of the applications and the engineers' reviews and city staff reviews of all of the development fees. We did an analysis of how much we've been paying our engineer and how much our time takes amongst city staff, and we're just trying to compare it so that it's fair, and the developers are paying what we're actually putting time and effort into their reviews. And so that's the first change on the fees and fine schedules. The next one is business licenses. And a few years ago, the state enacted a law, and it makes it so home occupied businesses have a way to not be charged a business license fee if they don't have any impact whatsoever on other than their residential impact that they would already have. So the city used that method for the last few years, but we still find that there's a lot of administrative burden on home impact or home-based businesses, and also that there are impacts that happen even when they're low impact. So we did a study for business licenses, you'll remember back in 2020, and it says what we can charge for home-based businesses. So we set the price at what that study said. And then it's on the burden's on the home-based business if they feel like they don't have any impact to the city other than their residential impact to get that fee waived. And that will be through Michelle, who runs all the business licenses.
So is
So
there an
Mark, this
objective
table,
What's that?
Is there an objective way to prove that it's not, or is it off of their word?
A lot of it's off of their word, from what I understand, what type of business they are, if they're how long they're open, and she'll be I've talked to her, and she has a group of people who they have a business license conference, and she's ran it through them quite a bit, and she states that the city is one of like, I don't know, like 5% of the cities don't charge home-based businesses. And so this is more along the lines of what's happening within the state and within.
What would that fee?
It would be, I should have pulled that up. Let's see, business license cost.
Home base, $65, isn't it?
No, it's like 35 or something. like that.
Oh, okay.
And all those home-based businesses who are currently operating, they would just pay a renewal fee. And it would be the same renewal fee as all the other businesses pay. But it's on page 283 was our study.
Okay.
So it's $46.25.
Okay.
And that's the initial fee. And when a home-based business submits their application, they've been submitting applications, we've been reviewing them. We make sure it's within the zoning, we make sure it's actually a little bit more time-consuming to approve the home-based ones because the zonings are all different. You have to go back and review the zoning code, and so that's the initial fee, the $46, and then the renewal fee would be that $17 a year after that.
Get a little concerned that she'll be making decisions that may make some people upset, you know, if there's not a real good way to go and objectively grade that and make sure that that's what it is. You know, for her to be the judge and jury at the same time, she could get herself in some hot water,
Right.
I think. I don't know. What do you guys think?
We have had, we've sat down and met with, I sign a lot of these, I sign a lot of these, and in a way, I kind of brought this up a little bit, and a lot of them, there's no charge, hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And and so I think this is sort of that, you know, charging for, you know, there is time involved. There's you know, I don't know if you can measure the exact hours and everything, but there is time and effort involved in doing all of this, and it does take a lot of time. You know, there's days and I'll get a stack of them about like that. You know, go through and sign them, and some of them, a lot of them are just zero. So maybe I'm a little bit at fault here for bringing this up, and Sean and I have talked about this, and Mark. So this is.
I know it's the
And
staff.
Zions has put the research together on it, so.
Yeah, and the staff would like to, they kind of feel like the home-based businesses are getting a free ride, I guess. And so it's their desire to.
Well, there is a lot. I mean,
There's a lot that
hundreds
goes
of
onto
them.
it.
And so it'd surprise you how many,
Well, that's not that much of a fee.
no, it really
So
isn't.
Mark, a quick question
It's not.
that on page 331, when was that updated last?
For home-based businesses, or
Oh, for the business licenses.
when this study took place, so 2020,
2020? Do we have a time frame that we update that?
or was it? Yeah, it was 2020.
Every 2 years, every 5 years, every,
We could
I don't-
revisit that study. I don't think it's on our radar currently, but we could revisit it. Zions has all the information currently, and they could do an update on the impact of these businesses and what we could charge them.
Let's,
oh yeah, we gotta,
let's pause for just a minute. We need to go into, this is an important closed session that we need to go into, so.
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, moved by Wes and seconded by Connie to go into closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll just be a few minutes, so you can just wait outside or whatever, and we'll just be a few minutes with this, and we'll start our regular meeting at 7 o'clock.